Hey, welcome to Texas Football Talk. I'm your host, 𝗟𝗞𝗘 once again joined by my brother Clint. In this episode, 2022 position preview, talking about the edges. How you doing, brother?
Hey, pretty good, man. I think I need to get one of those chairs that's got the little hydraulics on it, man, so I can drop this thing down a little bit or bring the computer up a little bit, one of the two, so we're on the same level. It's kind of, I feel a little taller than you, which is really not the case in real life. So a couple of things, man, before we get started. Again, we're trying to hit 4,000 subscribers before, September 3rd, University of Louisiana Monroe game. We're getting there, and we appreciate the support over the last really month, 2 months, man. We pushed up in the subscribers. But I also want to shout out to Armando Alanis, newest member of the Inner Circle. We appreciate you joining that. It means a lot to us. Without further ado, man, let's talk about this edge room that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, just so got a group of returners, talking about Barryn, Sorrell, who's my breakout player of the year. Ovie Oghoufo is probably the most experienced out of the group, played in all 12 games last year, 8 starts. But pretty much after that, you don't have a whole lot of experience coming back. You got guys that move positions, and I know you want to talk about who left and who moved positions to leave us with this group of kind of 2 experienced guys. A couple of guys have been on campus but hadn't got much playing time, and then the 4 freshmen. So you want to talk about who left?
Yeah, so absolutely, man. So if you're looking at Pro Football Focus, and that's the numbers I'm going to kind of go over right now, you're looking at a couple of guys that had played significant snaps last year that are no longer there. You're talking about, obviously, Alabama transfer Ben Davis that played there last year, and you're talking about Ray Thornton, another transfer from LSU, no longer there. Jacoby Jones, obviously broke his ankle last year. After the Oklahoma game, didn't play very many significant snaps. Jeb Bush moved back to linebacker, from spring into fall. And then you're talking about guys like DJ Harris that played in 2 games, total of 14 snaps. Prince Stormer that played in 1 game and had 9 snaps. And then Barryn Sorrell, 6 games, 93 snaps. So really what you have here is Ovie Oghoufo that's played a significant amount of time, or more than half the season. Who played, 12 games, 523 snaps. And I want you to talk more about, the freshmen that are coming here and that could come in and make an impact, and in what you see from what we currently have as far as the edge rushers go.
And absolutely. We talked about Alfred. Let me touch on Alfred Collins real quick. So we touched on Alfred Collins during our defensive line position preview. But Alfred Collins plays, outside. He plays the defensive end at the University of Texas. So I think you're going to get some experience if Alfred does play outside, and I think they may do that if they deem that that's the best position for him to make plays. But you're talking about Tapp out of Ascension, Louisiana, All-American, number 6 weak side defensive end coming in. You're talking about Justice Finkley, who's also an Under Armour All-American. So you got 2 All-Americans coming in. One played in the old game we know as the Army All-American game. That was Jamond, and then Justice played in the Under Armour. But you're talking about 2 guys that are top 10 edge players coming into the University of Texas. And then you got a speed demon on the outside, the 6'7", 234 pounds, in Ethan Burke from Westlake, who started out playing the cross. And when we interviewed Connor Robertson before he got to the University of Texas last year, we asked him who his toughest matchup was, and he said Ethan Burke, and described, the lacrosse experience, the speed off the edge. Just a wild card in my mind for that edge position. And then Zach Swanson, another freshman, 6'4", 250 pounds out of Brophy in Arizona. So you got Ovie Oghoufo, guys who've been on campus for a while, who haven't played much. My breakout player, Barryn Sorrell, who showed out last year against Kansas State late in the season, then showed out again in the spring game. And then after that, you got 4 freshmen. And then, like I said, you don't really know what they're going to do with Alfred Collins. Talked about a defensive line of Byron Murphy with Moro Ojomo, with Oghoufo and Alfred Collins, but who knows what combination is going to come and make up that front 4 when it is 4-man. But go ahead.
So when you're talking about Alfred Collins, you're talking about somebody that's 6'5", 292 pounds that has good feet. You know what I'm saying? But is large enough to be able to stop the run to the outside. You know what I'm saying? Be that edge that can wrap his big, long arms, outside of that offensive tackle. And when you're talking about where he played last year, after Oklahoma, he started playing over the tackle and outside of the tackle with about 270 snaps. And in those games, is really where you've seen him really take off, and it flashes. I think with Alfred Collins, you're seeing it in flashes. You see, like, him getting to the quarterback or making a stop in the backfield for a loss. But if you look at what he did from Oklahoma all the way to Kansas, you're looking at about 7, 9, 11 total, 11 total pressures. And out of those 11 total pressures, you're looking at about 8, 9 hurries to the quarterback. So my thought process is that I think you got to mix and match when it comes to Alfred Collins. I think Barryn Sorrell probably gives you a better speed rush, right, from the outside. But Alfred Collins, I think, could give you both in an outside rush, but also use his size to almost create an inside rush from that defensive end position as well.
It's one of the toughest positions to play in football. Because, again, to be deeper than the deepest, right, to set the edge, you want to get as deep as the deepest back to turn them inside because you got more players there. You don't want them getting outside. We saw that with the run game and how it was used effectively against us last year. But at the same time, you have to be disciplined enough to understand play action. And if I go deeper than the deepest and I get out of my gap and my responsibilities, my pressure, then, I could get burned there as well. So it's a really, really tough position to play in football, in my opinion. And the best ones are those guys you're talking about, the guys that have the size to hold up against tackles in the run game, but still have that quick twitch to get outside and then also have a counter move if an outside speed rush doesn't work. So I definitely understand, the infatuation and moving Alfred Collins outside. I just, like you thought, he had flashes as a freshman interior. And you brought it to my attention. He had the same capabilities in flashes as a defensive end. So he's the guy that, like I said, could end up playing inside or outside. And I think if he's in either position, I think it makes your line better. But like you talked about, Barryn Sorrell, a guy who's a little bit smaller. I think he's 250 pounds. But again, he has rush ability. I think it was the spring game when he made back-to-back plays in the run game and then turned around and put pressure on the quarterback, made him throw it in the dirt. Would have been a sack, probably if you're not playing with black jerseys. But again, there's not a whole lot of returning production. That's what I saw when we started writing this was the defensive line. The other guys have a ton of experience. We're talking about Coburn, Sweat, and that interior piece. Even Byron Murphy, you talked about his snap count from last year. A ton of experience interior. What are they going to do with those pieces that are backing up those interior players? Can they find places to fit them on the edge to make the line an overall better unit in the 2022 season? That's significant. And again, because you have to be able to set the edge. And we talked about the numbers in the sack rate. We talked about how it benefits the turnovers. If you're putting pressure on the quarterback, you make the team behind the chains. Cause them to get that turnover margin from -4 to a plus. And if you're in a plus, then generally you win ball games. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I kind of want to go back to Ovie Oghoufo a little bit. I'm saying third on the team in tackles for loss. Said it today that he expects the defense to improve vastly with experience in PK system. Obviously coming from Notre Dame. And if you look at it, and I kind of went back and look at Ovie Oghoufo's numbers as well. And because as you start watching these football games over, it's one thing to watch them live and be frustrated, be irritated, but it's another thing to actually go back and watch them, and kind of rewind back and see where people, are out on the line. Are they a 3 technique? Or are they over the nose? Are they outside the tackle? Or are they over the tackle? And I think one thing you noticed is that there was a lot of fall pressure, meaning that if you go back and look at Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders in the first half of that football game, and I always got to go to the first half, back to the first halves of these football games, we were up 17-3, but we were causing enough pressure for Spencer Sanders to make bad throws, where he's tossing them over the wide receivers, or he's throwing it out of bounds, or he's throwing interceptions to Jamison. But if you look at Ovie Oghoufo's number from the time that he came from Notre Dame to where he is now, if you see a trajectory, it's going up. If you're looking at Pro Football Focus's numbers, where he was at in Notre Dame in 2020, he was at about 57.9 overall defense. His rush defense was at about 55. This last year at Texas, he was at about 65.9. And when you're looking at rush defense, he was one of the top 5 rush defenders that we did have. I think the problem we're seeing with Ovie Oghoufo is really that pass rush. And so if he could put it all together and create a pass rush at the same time, keep these numbers both, in tackling, he's one of the best tacklers on the team as well, tackling and run defense. I think you'll see a trajectory of Ovie Oghoufo this year as well from that rush defensive end spot there.
So let's include Alfred Collins into the deep edge room, right? And so you're talking about Ovie Oghoufo, Alfred Collins, Barryn, Sorrell. Those are the names we keep talking about. And then we talk about the 4 freshmen coming in, Tapp, Finkley, Burke, and Swanson. Prince Dorbah was a 5-star recruit, high 4-star, possibly 5-star by some recruiting services out of Highland Park in Dallas. DJ Harris, was a freshman last year coming out of the Houston area. Impact for those guys because they kind of just get skipped over. In some publications, you have Prince Dorbah backing up the Jack, but you don't see DJ Harris and you don't see Prince Dorbah. I think it's important in order for the depth at the edge to really cement itself and to be able to rotate fresh linemen, because like I said, it's a tough job that they're asked to do, setting the edge in the run game and getting pressure on the quarterback from the perimeter. I think all 8 of these guys we're talking about are going to have to step up and play. Your thoughts on Prince Dorbah and DJ Harris and their importance in this puzzle?
Absolutely important. The more the merrier in this situation. Pass rushers, you hope that you can bring a fresh pass rusher down on, in on a 3rd down play, right? If you got a guy that's been in there on 1st and 2nd, it's 3rd and long, let me bring DJ Harris off the bench. Let me bring, Prince Dorbah off the bench with fresh legs that they can work around the offensive tackle. So I think absolutely it's important. I think what you have here is you have very little experience, but I think you have talented guys behind them. And that goes along with Barryn Sorrell as well. Because if you go back and look at Barryn Sorrell this last year, who had more snaps than DJ Harris and Prince Dorbah, I think you've seen really splashes last year, especially in that Oklahoma State game. He played really, really in that Oklahoma State game. And then he went backwards a little bit after that Oklahoma State game. But then we've seen flashes in the spring, but also in the fall. And we've seen the same thing from both DJ Harris in the spring game. If you went to the spring game, you've seen DJ Harris get around that end. I think he's one of those speed rushers. But I think when you're talking about pressure and Pete Kwiatkowski said this in his media availability, it's hard to put a guy on the field that has the speed to get around the edge, but you also have to have a couple of moves to go with that. And I think I think that's what Prince Dorbah needs, as well as DJ Harris. Because I think they can get around the edge, but at the same time, you can't use that same move every time. But it's absolutely important that you have Barryn Sorrell, Harris, and Dorbah show up this year just to create some experience for next year going forward. They'll obviously get a lot more snaps and a lot more game time than they had last year with, obviously Jacoby Jones and Ray Thornton and Ben Davis gone. It's time for these guys to step up and take on those second team, third team roles at that.
Yeah, because again, 20 sacks in 12 games. Ben Davis was your sack leader with 2.5. Pressure. I got to get pressure from my front 4. I don't want to have to use my second level and blitz. Of course, you're going to have to use it some, but really like to get pressure with that front 4 in order to be able to use those guys in coverage, because all the great teams have a good front 4 that allows you to put pressure on the quarterback and then clog and cover underneath with the linebackers. And I know one thing I'm gonna let you hit on this is the coordination piece and why you think they'll have more time to get to the quarterback, or the quarterback will have less time in the pocket.
I think it's difference in scheme. You can't run the same thing over and over and expect it to work. And Steve Sarkisian sent on multiple pressers, this fall, that he wants a 6 foot cornerback. They have to be taller than 6 foot. They got to be physical. And I think you have to close that space between cornerback, nickelback, and wide receiver. Because the more space you give them, the easier the throws are. You sit back there, you take a 3-step drop, and the ball is out of your hands. If you got a cornerback that's 8 yards off of the cornerback, what you do is you bring those guys up on top of those receivers, and you're now in press man coverage. It allows your edge rushers more time to actually get to the quarterback. And so I think it's one of those things where the scheme has to come together. I think that your defensive backs playing man press coverage is going to allow your edge rushers, hopefully, to be able to get to the quarterback, or have the quarterback hold the ball longer so they have an opportunity to get to him. I just want to run through something. Go ahead.
You got to try it while you're looking it up. You got to try it, right? Because you saw that off coverage and limited pressure on the quarterback cost you to give up 31 points a game. It caused you to give up 7 completions for 10 completion attempts. So you got to try something different. I think they're, like you said, they're recruiting the body type to be able to get up in the receivers' faces. And I like you said, I think those easy throws will go away for the quarterbacks, make them hold the ball a little longer. Defensive front can get to them. That's what you hope can happen.
I just want to go over some the pressure numbers from this last year, kind of give you an idea of what the total pressures are from and where they came from. Alfred Collins had a total of 15 pressures. DeMarvin Overshown, obviously, bringing him around the line, free blitzes. He had 15 total pressures. Ovie Oghoufo, 14. Moro Ojomo had 12. Byron Murphy, 11. And then you had Jacoby Jones that only played seven games, right? Injured ankle. He would have definitely been your total pressure guy. But I think what happened after Jacoby Jones got injured, I think that's when Alfred Collins came in and played that same role that Jacoby Jones was playing on the edge there. So he had a total of 9 total pressures through really the I guess 116 opportunities as it looks today. As I'm reading this, 116 opportunities, he had 9 total pressures. But that's one of these things, man. And they've been beat up. Pete Kwiatkowski was about to ask. They were asking a question about pressure, and he was like, "What pressure?" There wasn't any. But it's his job. It's his job to put these players in the right positions in order to get that pressure.
Absolutely.
So.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
No,
just as we're putting this defense together, it's clear that the edges are inexperienced. There's talent there. Like I said, Ovie Oghoufo today in his media availability said, we believe this defense will get better because we're in the second year of a system. We're adjusting the defense to fit our skill set, and so time will tell. But like I said, you got experience around these guys, both in the linebacking core and on the defensive line. Just hope that some of these guys come along and are productive this year. I do anticipate, like I said, Barryn Sorrell is my breakout player for a reason. I think he'll show up and get those pressure numbers that we were just talking about to a higher level. And the piece of the puzzle is setting that edge on the run. But again, I think they got the most difficult job on the defensive side of the field. Some folks might argue it's hard to play cornerback one-on-one. Receiver knows where he's going. You don't. You're out there on an island. But I think these guys have got a very tough job, and I just can't wait to see them get after it. It's
almost a flip of the coin for me what freshman's going to break out this year on the defense side of the ball, and it's almost a flip of the coin. And I think it could either be Tapp, freshman selected to participate in the All-American Bowl, 77 nationally in the composite there, number 6 among the weak side defensive ends, and then you got Justin Finkley, who was also participated in the 2022 Under Armour game, who was number 10 among edge players. So you got some edge players in there. And I think just like you talk about the offensive linemen, right? Offensive linemen and all these freshmen that came in there, those talented freshmen that came in there on the offensive side of the ball, offensive line. I think you see the same. You could see the same thing with Tapp and Justin Finkley, who could be, working themselves into that 2 deep sooner than later. Just based on the talent that they do have and what they brought to the 40 acres, man. So it's almost a flip of the coin. You could say Tapp may be the guy that breaks out this year, and you may flip another coin that says Justice Finkley. But I'm definitely glad they decided the University of Texas, man, because that's definitely where we need to bring guys in is at the edge.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, man. Just outside of 20 days till we kick it off against Louisiana Monroe. And like I said, we're interested to see the defense. I mean, everybody's fired up about the offense because projections and thoughts are they're going to put up anywhere between 35 and 45 points a game. Just how much improved is this defense going to be? And again, it starts with stopping the run and put pressure on the quarterback, and these guys have a big role in that.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Well, we hope you appreciated this show. Thank you for listening. As always, please hit that like button if you like the content. Put your thoughts and comments down in the comment section of the YouTube comments, and please hit that subscribe button if you have not subscribed. We'd love you to be part of the Texas Football Talk family. We appreciate you listening as always, and y'all have a wonderful Hook 'em day. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.